Schweiker. This is my Litespeed Pinhoti III that I did the 4th edition, the 2022 Silk Road Mountain Race with. Silk Road Mountain Race is a roughly 1,200 mile point-to-point race through Kyrgyzstan, and the Pinhoti III was a great bike to do it on. Everything's assembled and made in Chattanooga, where I'm from. The bike has 29-inch wheels, running Reynolds carbon rims. I have a Sun Dynamo hub that's laced into a Cinewave beacon light. The bike's running a Fox 32 120 mil suspension. That was actually one of the things that was a tough decision with the setup for the bike. Beforehand, I had bought an NV carbon fork, and a big decision was whether to run the suspension fork or whether to go full rigid, and ultimately decided to go with the 120 mil fork that comes on the, I think on all the builds with the Pinhoti, and that ended up being a great decision. I switched from the stock build to a NV carbon bar just because spending so much time on the bike, that carbon bar kind of soaks up some of the chatter, and I was really happy with that decision. It's got XT hydraulic brakes. The way the kind of bike packing bags are situated is that, up front I'm running tail fin carbon mounts. And so on the right side, I have a 3-liter tail fin bag that has a lot of the bike tools in it. And so Kyrgyzstan being pretty remote and not really having access to bike shops, I went pretty heavy on tools and tubes and just not wanting any mechanicals to force me to scratch. So tool bag was pretty thorough. And then I ran a full Rottgeist, which is out of Western North Carolina, custom frame bag. And the custom frame bags aren't cheap, but they really help you utilize the most space efficiently. And so when I was buying a titanium bike, I kind of think of it as a forever bike anyway. And so having a fully custom frame bag, I think is the way to go. This one actually bolts. It's a bolt-on and then a lace-up on the top tube. And so it's really secure. I kind of kept food, just long stretches without resupply, so I kind of tried to keep things organized by having food and just things that I needed quick access to into the frame bag. Up front, I'm running just a, I think you pronounce it Ojera Negra. It's just a harness with a Sea to Summit dry bag. And in the dry bag, I've got a OR bivy, a Western Mountaineering 30-degree sleeping bag, and then an insulated Nemo sleeping pad. And along with the fork, the other big kind of gear decision to make was whether to use a tent or a bivy. I ultimately decided to do the bivy, and I'm really happy with that decision. It worked out well. So running a feed bag, there's 2 tubes. One of the downsides of running the frame bag is that you lose your bottle cages. And so the same fork mount, tail fin fork mounts that hold the tool bag on this side hold a Dawn to Dusk Captive 10 bottle cage, and that one's really good because it takes a lot of force to get it out. So when you're getting bounced around, you're not going to lose your bottle. The bike has a dropper post on it because I also use this as just a XC race bike, and just for around town riding trails at Raccoon Mountain or backcountry oriented stuff at Chilhowie. I really feel like this bike can handle a lot of anything, and so I put the dropper post back on, but I ran a rigid carbon post for the race. This is a Bedrock bag, seat bag. They're out of Durango, Colorado, and I believe this is called the Kokono model. And this is where I had all of my extra clothes. And so one of the big challenges of the race is trying to be prepared for every situation, and the temperature ranges were pretty vast. It got up to high 90s and then down to below freezing, so having the correct layering was pretty important. So had a down jacket, a down vest, a nice Arc'teryx waterproof jacket, two layers of long johns, of merino wool long johns. I wore Rafa shorts. I don't like to wear a chamois in these long races just because they're hard to keep clean, hard to manage, and so wearing wool underwear with the Rafa shorts was a perfect setup for me. Drivetrain this is the stock drivetrain that comes from the bike when you buy it, built up from Litespeed, with the exception of the cassette. I think it comes mostly with a 32 from the factory, and I opted to put a 32th chainring on for the race, which I was really happy with that decision. 1051 rear cassette with XT rear derailleur. And then I have the Shimano SPD pedals. And then there's a lot of hike-a-bike in the race, and so you gotta have a shoe that is both comfortable to pedal in and also comfortable to hike. And so I've had several pairs of the Shimano ME5s, and I just had no problems with my feet. I could hike, I could cycle, and so yeah, I was really happy with that choice. So this bike performed flawlessly. I didn't even have a flat tire. So that's pretty much the setup.